My name is Isabella Catherine Morgan, and until 6 months ago, I thought I had everything a woman could want. A successful marketing career, a beautiful home in the suburbs, and what I believed was the perfect marriage to my husband of 8 years, Marcus. Marcus was everything I thought I wanted in a man when we met in college. Tall, charming, ambitious, with those deep brown eyes that could make me forget my own name. He was studying business while I was pursuing my marketing degree. We were the couple everyone envied, the ones who seemed destined for greatness together. After graduation, we moved to the city where Marcus landed a job at a prestigious investment firm, and I started climbing the corporate ladder at a top marketing agency. We bought our dream house, took romantic vacations, and talked about starting a family. From the outside, we were living the American dream. But dreams, I learned, can quickly turn into nightmares. The first signs were subtle. Marcus started working late more often, claiming big deals and important clients. His phone, which used to lie casually on the kitchen counter, suddenly became an extension of his hand. When I'd walk into a room while he was on a call, he'd quickly end the conversation or step outside. "Just work stuff, babe," he'd say with that same charming smile. You know how demanding Richardson can be. Richardson was his boss, a man I'd met several times at company parties. He seemed reasonable enough, certainly not the slave driver Marcus was making him out to be. Then came the mysterious expenses. Designer purchases that didn't make it home. Restaurant charges from places we'd never been together. When I asked about them, Marcus always had an explanation ready. Client dinner. Company expense I had to front. Gift for your birthday that I'm hiding. My birthday came and went. No designer gifts appeared. I'm not a suspicious person by nature, but I'm also not stupid. 8 years of marriage teaches you to read the signs, and every instinct I had was screaming that something was wrong. But I loved him. More than that, I trusted him completely. Or at least, I trusted the man I thought he was. The truth has a way of revealing itself, though, especially when you're married to someone who thinks they're smarter than everyone else. It was a Thursday evening in March when my world came crashing down. Marcus had texted that he'd be working late again, the third time that week. I decided to surprise him with dinner from his favorite Thai place. I'd done it before, and he'd always been genuinely happy to see me. His office building was downtown, all glass and steel reaching toward the sky like a monument to ambition. I knew the security guard, Pete, who always remembered me from my previous visits. "Mrs. Morgan. Nice to see you." Mr. Morgan's not in today, though. Left around noon for meetings. My stomach dropped. "Are you sure?" He said he'd be working late tonight. Pete checked his logs, confusion crossing his weathered face. "No ma'am, signed out at 12:15. Haven't seen him since." I stood there in the marble lobby, holding a bag of pad thai and feeling like the biggest fool who ever lived. The rational part of my brain tried to find innocent explanations. Maybe he was at a client's office. Maybe Pete made a mistake. Maybe the meetings ran so late he went straight home. But deep down, I knew. I drove home slowly, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. Our house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. No Marcus. No explanation text. Nothing. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I went to our home office and opened Marcus's laptop, something I'd never done before in 8 years of marriage. He'd always respected my privacy, and I'd extended the same courtesy to him. The laptop wasn't password protected. Why would it be? He trusted me just as much as I trusted him. Or so I thought. His email was open, and right there in the inbox was a thread with the subject line, "Can't wait for tonight." The sender was someone named Vanessa Chen, and the preview text made my blood run cold. "The lingerie you bought me is perfect. Room 412 at the Marriott." My hands were trembling as I clicked on the email thread. What I found there was 8 months of correspondence between my husband and this woman. 8 months of planning secret meetups, exchanging intimate photos, and discussing their future together. The messages were explicit, detailed, and left no room for misinterpretation. This wasn't a brief affair or a moment of weakness. This was a full-blown relationship, complete with romantic getaways, shared inside jokes, and discussions about how they'd eventually deal with the Isabella situation. The Isabella situation. That's what my marriage had become to my husband, a situation to be dealt with. I scrolled through months of messages, each one feeling like a knife to my heart. There were photos of expensive gifts, the same charges I'd questioned on our credit card statements. There were screenshots of apartment listings, as they looked for a place to move in together. There were even messages about how Marcus planned to divorce me and take half of everything, including the business I'd helped him start 2 years ago. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was reading how they talked about me. "Isabella's so clueless," Marcus had written. "She actually believes I'm working late. Sometimes I think she deserves what's coming. You're too good for her anyway," Vanessa had replied. "She's not even that pretty anymore. You need someone who appreciates what an amazing man you are. Can't wait to be done with this charade. Soon, baby. Soon." I sat in that office chair until 3 a.m., reading every single message, looking at every photo, absorbing every detail of their relationship. By the time I closed the laptop, I wasn't the same woman who had opened it. The Isabella who had walked into that office had been trusting, loving, and naive. The Isabella who walked out was something else entirely. Marcus came home at 3:30 a.m., reeking of perfume and sex. He found me sitting in the living room, waiting. "Hey babe, sorry I'm so late. The client meeting ran forever, and then we went for drinks to celebrate closing the deal." He was such a good liar. 8 months of practice had really paid off. "How was your evening?" I asked, my voice eerily calm. "Exhausting. I'm going to grab a shower and head to bed." "Marcus?" "Yeah? I love you." He paused, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker across his face. Guilt? Regret? It was gone so quickly I might have imagined it. "Love you too, Is." He went upstairs, and I listened to the shower running. I knew he was washing off the evidence of his evening with Vanessa Chen. I knew he'd be more careful with his cologne tomorrow. I knew he'd probably delete some of those more recent messages. What he didn't know was that I'd already screenshot everything and uploaded it to a cloud drive he didn't have access to. What he didn't know was that I'd spent the last hour researching Vanessa Chen and discovering she was married to a prominent surgeon named Dr. James Chen. What he didn't know was that I was no longer the woman he thought he could fool indefinitely. The next morning, Marcus left for work as usual, kissing me goodbye like he had every morning for 8 years. But this time, I watched him through the window as he got into his car, and I saw him smile to himself as he drove away. He thought he was winning. He thought he was playing me perfectly, keeping both women in his life until he was ready to make his move. He thought I was just another clueless wife who'd rather live in denial than face the truth. He couldn't have been more wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, I became someone I didn't recognize: a detective, a spy, a woman with a mission. I took vacation days from work, telling my team I needed some personal time. I wasn't lying, I just wasn't telling them what kind of personal time. I hired a private investigator named Sarah Mitchell, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who specialized in infidelity cases. Within 3 days, she had photos, videos, and detailed reports of Marcus and Vanessa's activities. They weren't just having an affair, they were living a complete double life. They had regular lunch dates at expensive restaurants across town. They'd been on weekend trips to luxury resorts. With Marcus telling me he was at business conferences. They'd even attended a wedding together, with Vanessa introducing Marcus to her friends as her boyfriend. But the most damning evidence came when Sarah followed them to a real estate office. They were seriously looking at condos, ready to move in together. The realtor's notes, which Sarah obtained through her contacts, showed they'd already put in an offer on a $800,000 penthouse apartment. The timeline became clear. They were planning to move in together by the end of the summer. Marcus was going to file for divorce in June, claiming irreconcilable differences and seeking half of our assets, including my business. Through Sarah's investigation, I also learned more about Vanessa Chen. She was 28 years old, worked as a marketing coordinator at a boutique firm, and had been married to Dr. James Chen for 3 years. She drove a BMW that her husband had bought her and lived in a beautiful home in the suburbs. She was also pregnant. 2 months pregnant, to be exact, and according to the medical records Sarah had obtained, don't ask me how Marcus knew about it. There were text messages between them discussing baby names and their future family. My husband wasn't just cheating on me. He was starting a whole new life, complete with a new wife and a baby, while planning to financially devastate me in the process. That's when I stopped feeling heartbroken and started feeling angry. I spent another week gathering additional evidence. I tracked their spending, documented their meetings, and built a comprehensive file of their affair. I also did something else. I researched Dr. James Chen. James Chen was a respected cardiac surgeon at the city's premier hospital. He was 35 years old, dedicated to his work, and by all accounts, completely devoted to his wife. His social media was full of photos of them together, with captions about how lucky he was to have found his soulmate. He had no idea his soulmate was carrying another man's baby. I also researched Marcus's company and discovered something interesting. His firm had a strict morality clause in their contracts. Employees who engaged in behavior that could damage the company's reputation could be terminated immediately, including affairs with clients or business associates. Vanessa's company, as it turned out, was one of Marcus's clients. The pieces of my revenge were starting to come together. I've always been good at strategy. It's what made me successful in marketing: the ability to see the big picture, anticipate obstacles, and execute complex campaigns flawlessly. Now I was going to use those same skills for a very different kind of campaign. My plan had multiple phases, each designed to maximize impact while protecting myself legally. I wasn't just going to expose the affair, I was going to systematically dismantle the life Marcus thought he was building while ensuring I came out ahead. I met with the best divorce attorney in the city, Catherine Walsh, and laid out everything I'd discovered. Catherine was impressed by the thoroughness of my evidence and assured me that Marcus's affair, especially given the financial deception involved, would work heavily in my favor in any divorce proceedings. I also met with a forensic accountant who helped me trace all of Marcus's hidden spending and document the money he'd been funneling toward his relationship with Vanessa. The total came to over $75,000 in the past 8 months, money that had come from our joint accounts and credit cards. The marketing consulting firm Marcus and I had started together was technically a partnership, but I'd been the one doing most of the actual work while he handled the business development side. I quietly met with our lawyer and restructured the business, buying out Marcus's share using a clause in our original partnership agreement that allowed for buyouts in cases of material breach of fiduciary duty. The beauty of this move was that Marcus would have to sign the papers or risk losing everything in a lengthy legal battle. And since he didn't know I knew about the affair, he'd have no idea why I was suddenly interested in restructuring our business. This was the part that required the most finesse. I couldn't just blast evidence of the affair across social media like some scorned wife. That would make me look unhinged and potentially create legal problems. Instead, I needed to be strategic about how and when the information came to light. I created anonymous email accounts and began gathering contact information for key people in both Marcus's and Vanessa's lives. This included their coworkers, friends, family members, and in Vanessa's case, her husband. The most satisfying part of my plan involved using Marcus's own greed against him. Through my private investigator, I learned that Marcus and Vanessa were planning a big romantic gesture, a trip to Paris for her birthday in May, where Marcus planned to give her an expensive diamond bracelet and officially ask her to leave her husband. The trip was going to cost about $15,000, money Marcus planned to take from our business account without my knowledge. I was going to let him. In early April, I started phase 1 of my plan by approaching Marcus about the business restructuring. I framed it as a way to protect our assets and reduce our tax burden, something that would actually benefit both of us. Catherine suggested we restructure the partnership, I told him over dinner one evening. Apparently, there are some significant tax advantages if we change how the business is classified. Marcus, who had always been more interested in the money than the legal details, barely looked at the papers before signing them. He was too distracted, probably thinking about Vanessa and their upcoming trip to Paris. "Whatever you think is best, babe," he said, scrawling his signature across multiple documents. "You've always been better with this stuff than me." Just like that, I became the sole owner of our business. Phase 2 began 2 weeks later when Marcus made the withdrawal for the Paris trip, just as I'd anticipated. I had been monitoring our accounts carefully, and the moment the money disappeared, I documented it thoroughly. But I didn't confront him. Instead, I let him go on the trip. For 5 days, Marcus told me he was at a conference in Chicago while he was actually in Paris with Vanessa. He sent me photos of what he claimed was his hotel room, actually stock photos he'd downloaded, and called me every evening to tell me about his boring business meetings. Meanwhile, Sarah was in Paris too, documenting every romantic dinner, every museum visit, every intimate moment between Marcus and his pregnant mistress. The photos she sent me were like something out of a romantic movie, Marcus looking happier than I'd seen him in years, completely devoted to this other woman. It should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt a cold satisfaction. He was giving me everything I needed to destroy him. Marcus returned from Chicago on a Sunday evening, full of stories about the conference and how much he'd missed me. He even brought me a gift, a cheap souvenir t-shirt that clearly said Chicago but had obviously been purchased at the airport. The conference was amazing, he told me as we sat on our couch. I learned so much about new investment strategies. I think this could really help us grow the business. That's wonderful, I said, smiling at him. I'm so proud of how hard you've been working. I've been thinking, he continued, maybe we should take a vacation together soon. Just the two of us. We haven't done that in a while. I'd love that, I lied. That night, as Marcus slept peacefully beside me, I made my final preparations. I'd given him every opportunity to come clean, every chance to end this charade on his own terms. He'd chosen to continue the deception. Now it was time for the truth. The next morning, after Marcus left for work, actually another day with Vanessa, I began the final phase of my plan. I started with Dr. James Chen. I'd researched him extensively and knew he was a good man who deserved to know the truth about his wife. I sent him a carefully crafted email from an anonymous account, including just enough evidence to make him take notice without overwhelming him. Dr. Chen, the email read. I'm writing to inform you of something you need to know about your wife's recent activities. I have no personal stake in this situation, but I believe you deserve to know the truth. Please see the attached photos and documentation. I included photos of Vanessa and Marcus together, copies of their most damning text messages, and medical records showing her pregnancy with dates that would make it clear the baby wasn't her husband's. 2 hours later, I sent a similar email to Marcus's boss, Mr. Richardson, outlining the affair with a client and the company money Marcus had been spending on personal expenses. Then I sent carefully crafted messages to key people in both their social circles, not gossip, but factual information presented as concerns from someone who cared about them. By 2 p.m., my phone started ringing. The first call was from Catherine, my lawyer. Isabella, we need to talk. Marcus just called asking about emergency divorce proceedings. I think he knows you know. The second call was from Sarah, my private investigator. Something's happening. I just saw Dr. Chin arrive at Vanessa's office building. This might get interesting. The third call was from Marcus himself. Isabella. His voice was tight, controlled. We need to talk. I'm coming home. Of course, I said sweetly. I'll be waiting. Marcus arrived home 30 minutes later, and I could see the panic in his eyes the moment he walked through the door. His carefully constructed double life was crumbling, and he knew it. How long have you known? He asked without preamble. I looked at him calmly from my position on the couch. Known what? Don't play games with me, Isabella. How long have you known about Vanessa? Since March 15th, I said. The night you were supposedly working late but actually signed out of your office at 12:15. His face went white. You've been spying on me? I've been protecting myself from a husband who's been stealing from me, lying to me, and planning to destroy my life. I stood up, and for the first time in 8 years of marriage, I saw fear in his eyes. Did you really think I wouldn't find out, Marcus? Did you really think I was that stupid? Isabella, listen. No, you listen. My voice was steady, cold. I know about the money you've been stealing. I know about the apartment you were planning to buy. I know about the baby Vanessa's carrying, your baby. I know about your plan to divorce me and take half of everything, including the business that I built. He sat heavily in the chair across from me. How much do you know? Everything. I pulled out a thick folder and set it on the coffee table between us. 8 months of emails. Hundreds of photos. Financial records. Medical records. Hotel receipts. Real estate documents. Everything. Marcus stared at the folder like it was a bomb that might explode. What do you want? I want you to understand what's about to happen to your life, I said. Dr. Chen received some interesting photos about 2 hours ago. Your boss received documentation of your affairs with a client and misuse of company funds. Vanessa's boss received evidence that she's been using company time and resources for personal activities. The color drained from his face completely. You didn't. I did. And that's just the beginning. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. That's Sarah, my private investigator. Apparently, Dr. Chin just left Vanessa's office building. She's crying in the parking lot. I imagine she'll be calling you soon. As if on cue, Marcus's phone started ringing. He looked at the screen, Vanessa's name flashing, and then at me. Answer it, I said. I'd love to hear how she's handling the news. He declined the call, but it immediately started ringing again. She's persistent, I observed. That's probably not the only call you'll be getting today. I imagine your boss will want to speak with you soon too. Isabella, we can work this out, Marcus said desperately. We can go to counseling. I'll end things with Vanessa. We can fix this. I laughed, and it sounded foreign even to my own ears. Fix this? Marcus, you've been planning to divorce me for months. You've been stealing money from me for almost a year. You've been living a complete double life, including getting your mistress pregnant. What exactly do you think we're going to fix? I made a mistake. You made hundreds of mistakes. Every text message, every lie, every stolen dollar was a choice. This wasn't some momentary lapse in judgment. This was a systematic betrayal of everything we built together. His phone rang again. This time, the name on the screen was Richardson Office. You should probably take that one, I suggested. Marcus looked at me with something approaching hatred. You're destroying my life. No, I said calmly. I'm revealing the life you chose to live. There's a difference. He answered the phone, and I listened as his boss demanded an immediate meeting to discuss serious allegations that had been brought to the company's attention. When he hung up, he looked defeated. What happens now? Now you face the consequences of your choices, I said. You'll probably be fired, since your company has that morality clause about affairs with clients. Vanessa will probably be fired too, since her company won't want the scandal. Dr. Chen will probably divorce her, and since she's carrying another man's baby, she won't get much in the settlement. I paused, letting that sink in. As for us, I've already filed for divorce. Given the evidence of adultery and financial misconduct, I don't think you'll be getting much from me either. In fact, I think you'll be lucky if you don't end up owing me money. The business is mine. You signed the papers 3 weeks ago, remember? You were so eager to get back to your double life that you didn't even read what you were signing. Marcus stared at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You planned all of this. I protected myself from all of this, I corrected. You planned to destroy my life. I simply made sure that wouldn't happen. His phone buzzed with a text message. He looked at it and closed his eyes. Vanessa? I asked. She says Chin threw her out. She's at a hotel and needs me to come get her. How romantic, I said dryly. The pregnant mistress and the soon-to-be unemployed cheater, facing the world together. It's like a fairy tale. You're enjoying this, he said bitterly. I'm surviving this, I replied. There's a difference. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of consequences, each more satisfying than the last. Marcus was fired from his job the very next day. The company's investigation revealed not only his affair with a client but also several instances of misusing company resources for personal gain. They threatened legal action if he didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement and forfeit his final paycheck. Vanessa was also terminated, though her firing was handled more quietly. Her company couldn't afford the scandal of an employee having an affair with a client, especially when that affair had resulted in pregnancy and the breakdown of 2 marriages. Dr. Chen, to his credit, handled the situation with more grace than either Marcus or Vanessa deserved. He filed for divorce immediately but offered to cover Vanessa's medical expenses through the pregnancy, despite knowing the baby wasn't his. He was, as I'd suspected, a genuinely good man who'd been betrayed by someone who didn't deserve him. The real estate deal for the penthouse apartment fell through when neither Marcus nor Vanessa could secure financing without their jobs. The $10,000 deposit they'd put down was forfeit. Marcus moved out of our house and into a cheap apartment across town. Without his job, he couldn't afford much, and the legal fees from our divorce were mounting quickly. I, meanwhile, thrived. With Marcus out of the business, I was able to focus entirely on growing our client base and expanding our services. Without his half of the expenses and with full control over business decisions, profits increased by 40% in the first quarter alone. I also discovered I was much happier without the constant stress of living with someone who was systematically betraying me. The house felt peaceful for the first time in months. I redecorated Marcus's office into a yoga studio and started taking evening classes. 3 months after the confrontation, I received an unexpected phone call from Dr. James Chen. "Mrs. Morgan? This is James Chen. I hope you don't mind me calling, but I wanted to thank you." I was surprised to hear from him. "Thank me?" "For telling me the truth about Vanessa. I know it couldn't have been easy, and I know you didn't have to do it. But I deserved to know." "You did," I agreed. "I'm sorry you had to go through all of that." "Actually, I'm not," he said, surprising me. "I mean, I'm sorry about the circumstances, but I'm grateful to be free of a marriage that was built on lies. I've met someone else, actually. Someone honest and kind. I'm happier than I've been in years." "I'm glad to hear that." "I was wondering," he continued, "would you like to have coffee sometime? I'd like to hear more about how you handled everything. I'm impressed by how strategic and dignified you were throughout this whole mess." I considered the invitation. James Chen was an attractive, successful, honest man who'd been through a similar betrayal. We certainly had common ground. "I'd like that," I said. As I write this story, sitting in my beautifully redecorated home office, I can honestly say that my life is better than it's ever been. My business is thriving. I've hired 3 new employees and expanded into digital marketing services. We're booking clients months in advance, and I'm being featured in business magazines as one of the city's most successful young entrepreneurs. My divorce from Marcus was finalized last month. Thanks to the evidence of his adultery and financial misconduct, I retained the house, the business, and most of our assets. Marcus received a small settlement and nothing more. James and I have been dating for 2 months now, and it's refreshing to be with someone who values honesty and communication. We take things slowly, both of us having learned the importance of really knowing someone before committing our hearts. Marcus and Vanessa are still together, though their relationship has been strained by the consequences of their choices. They're both working retail jobs now, struggling to make ends meet. Vanessa had her baby, a beautiful little girl who deserves better parents than she got. Sometimes I wonder if I was too harsh, if my revenge was disproportionate to the crime. Then I remember the 8 months of lies, the stolen money, the systematic plan to destroy my life, and I know I did what I had to do to protect myself. I didn't set out to ruin anyone's life. I set out to save my own. Looking back on this experience, I've learned several important lessons that I want to share with anyone who might find themselves in a similar situation. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. I wasted weeks trying to rationalize Marcus's behavior when my gut was telling me the truth from the beginning. Document everything. If you suspect infidelity, start keeping records immediately. Screenshots, photos, receipts, timestamps, everything could be important later. Protect yourself legally. Don't confront a cheating spouse until you've consulted with a lawyer and understand your rights and options. Don't act in anger. The most satisfying revenge is the kind that's carefully planned and executed with precision. Emotional outbursts might feel good in the moment, but they rarely lead to the best outcomes. Focus on your future, not just their punishment. The best revenge is living well. While I was planning Marcus's downfall, I was also building my own success. Sometimes the truth is the most powerful weapon. I didn't have to lie, manipulate, or fabricate anything. I simply revealed the truth that Marcus and Vanessa were trying to hide. The woman who discovered her husband's affair 8 months ago is not the same woman writing this story today. That woman was trusting to a fault, naive about human nature, and willing to overlook red flags in the name of love. This woman, the woman I've become, is stronger, wiser, and more self-reliant. I've learned that I don't need someone else to complete me or make me happy. I'm quite capable of creating my own success and joy. That doesn't mean I'm bitter or closed off to love. My relationship with James has shown me what a healthy partnership looks like, one based on mutual respect, honest communication, and genuine care for each other's well-being. It just means I'll never again ignore my instincts or accept less than I deserve. It's been exactly 1 year since I discovered Marcus's betrayal, and I'm writing this final chapter from my new office, a beautiful space downtown that serves as headquarters for my expanding business. Yesterday, I ran into Vanessa at the grocery store. She was pushing a stroller and looked tired, older than her years. When she saw me, she quickly turned and walked away, but not before I saw the recognition and shame in her eyes. I felt nothing. No anger, no satisfaction, no pity. She was simply a stranger who had briefly intersected with my life and taught me valuable lessons about trust and self-protection. Marcus, I learned from mutual friends, has moved to another state. He's working as a junior associate at a small investment firm, making a fraction of what he used to earn. He and Vanessa broke up 6 months ago when the stress of their circumstances became too much for their relationship to bear. Sometimes people ask me if I regret how I handled everything. They wonder if I should have tried counseling, if I should have given him a second chance, if my revenge was too calculated and cold. My answer is always the same: I have no regrets. I didn't choose to have my marriage destroyed by infidelity and betrayal. I didn't choose to have my trust violated and my financial security threatened. I didn't choose to discover that the man I loved was living a double life and planning to abandon me for someone else. But I did choose how to respond to those circumstances. I chose to be strategic rather than emotional. I chose to protect myself rather than protect his feelings. I chose to reveal the truth rather than live in denial. Most importantly, I chose to build a better life for myself rather than simply tear down the life he was trying to build with someone else. That's not revenge, that's survival. That's not cruelty, that's justice. That's not being a bitter ex-wife, that's being a strong woman who refused to let someone else's choices define her future. Today, I'm successful, happy, and surrounded by people who value honesty and loyalty. I wake up every morning in a beautiful home that's truly mine, go to work at a business I built myself, and come home to a life I've created on my own terms. If that's what revenge looks like, then I'll take it. But really, it's not revenge at all. It's just a woman who refused to let betrayal be the end of her story and instead made it the beginning of something better. And honestly, that's the most satisfying ending of all.